Let's go today. Inspire your troops today. Inspire your troops today.
If you guys want to be remembered forever, this is how you do it.
All right. We win the game. This is a legendary defense. Put an exclamation point on your work.
It's over, folks. The Pittsburgh Steelers have won the Super Bowl for a sixth-time unprecedented.
It's time now for Black and Gold Central Radio, exclusively on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Let's get those terrible towels waving. And now your host, Mike Batista.
Hey, I wanna change. You're a black on devil and I can't explain why I wait for your face.
Welcome to Black and Gold Central Radio on Pro Football Central Network. I am Mike Batista, your host, and what we're doing today is a little preview show to get everybody excited about this new Steelers podcast on the Pro Football Central Network. I'm going to talk about a few things Steelers related that have been going on recently. And next week we'll be in full swing. We'll have a few guests on the show, some current players of the current Pittsburgh Steelers players. But for now, I'm going to get everybody introduced to me, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers featured columnist for Bleacher Report, and I also write for Steeler Addicts, another Pittsburgh Steelers website. I've been blogging about the Pittsburgh Steelers since 2007. My first Pittsburgh Steelers website was a site called Steelers.com, and that was STEELAHS.com. And then I started writing for another site that I created called Respect the Towel, which I began writing for, a site that I created in 2010. And then in 2011 is when I began writing for Bleacher Report, and then currently I'm writing for both Bleacher Report and Steeler Addicts. And I'm making my world premiere on the Pro Football Central Network on Black and Gold Central Radio. And it's a great time to be launching a Steelers podcast today, June 10th, 2013, because there are exactly 90 days until the Pittsburgh Steelers open the 2013 season. The season opener for the Steelers is September 8th at home against the Tennessee Titans. So we are 90 days away from that. And so it's a good time to get Black and Gold Central Radio going and talking about the Steelers and getting people fired up about the season. This is the first of hopefully many, many episodes of Black and Gold Central Radio. I want to thank Brian Harrington, the founder and CEO of Pro Football Central, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope you enjoy listening to what I have to say about the Steelers and the NFL in general, even if you don't agree with everything that I say. You're definitely not going to agree with everything I say, but it should be fun. It should be a fun little exchange. I should mention now that you can find Black and Gold Central on Twitter. That's Black N, the word black, the letter N, and then the word gold, Black and Gold Central. Follow us on Twitter. Tell us what you think about the show. You can ask us to talk about a certain topic, and that would be a great way to get the ball rolling on this show. I'm at Steel Tweets. My Twitter handle for Mike Batista is Steel Tweets. That's Steel_tweets. And you can also talk about Black and Gold Central Radio there. There's going to be a lot of cross-promotion. Let me tell you now about myself as a Steelers fan, which is the whole reason why I'm here launching Black and Gold Central Radio. I became a Pittsburgh Steelers fan in 1979, which is the year they won their 4th Super Bowl. That was their 4th Super Bowl title in 6 years. That would be the last championship that they won in the 1970s during the Steelers dynasty, the Steel Curtain era of the 1970s. I just started following football in 1979, became a Steelers fan, watched a few Steelers games on TV that year, watched them beat the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl. And then that was going to be their last championship for a long time. I always say that it kind of felt, although I was too young to drink at the time, it kind of felt like going to a bar 10 minutes before the last call. It's like, no more Steelers championships for a while. I felt like, what do you mean it's last call? I just got here. So I had to, after the Steelers won that championship, it would be another 26 years before they won another one. So I had to endure the mediocrity of the 1980s. And then things got a little bit better. Things got a little bit better in the 1990s. The Steelers were regular participants in the playoffs, but still there was a lot of frustration because of all those AFC Championship game losses at home. So, but it paid off. It paid off to stick by the Steelers in the 80s and in the 90s because now they've won 2 championships in the last, since 2005. So all that patience, all that loyalty has been rewarded. Although now the Steelers are coming off an 8-8 season in 2012. So they need to kind of get back to where they were in 2008 and 2010, and it's not going to be so easy. But as long as Ben Roethlisberger is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, championships are never impossible. No matter what else is wrong with the team, no matter what their weaknesses are, as long as a healthy Ben Roethlisberger is the Steelers quarterback, championships are a possibility. Some years the possibility might be more remote than others, but Ben Roethlisberger is here, so the Steelers can't ever be counted out to get back to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. And that brings me to the first topic that I wanted to talk about, which is the minor knee surgery that Ben Roethlisberger had last week. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, he just went in there. They went in there to clean up some loose cartilage in Ben Roethlisberger's knee. Ed Bouchette of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said that if this was a surgery that happened during the season, Roethlisberger would probably miss 3 games. And he also said that Dan Marino used to have this procedure regularly during the offseason. So this surgery on Ben Roethlisberger's knee last week is really nothing to worry about. He had his knee operated on during the 2005 season, and the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl. That said, though, the Steelers need to get some 16-game seasons out of Ben Roethlisberger to increase their championship hopes. We kind of take it for granted as Steelers fans every year that Ben Roethlisberger, he's going to miss, 2 or 3 games every season. The last time he played a 16-game season was 2008. And wouldn't you know it, the Steelers won the Super Bowl that year. But since then, he hasn't played any full seasons, and he's missed a couple of games every year. And we're like, okay, well, Ben Roethlisberger's going to miss a couple of games. That's part of life. Well, it's not that way in other cities. I actually wrote an article on Steeler Addicts back in January in the wake of the disappointment of the Steelers' 8-8 season in 2012. And while Steelers fans just accept that Ben Roethlisberger is going to miss a couple of games every year, let's look at Joe Flacco, the quarterback for the Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens. He's led the Ravens to the playoffs in each of his first 5 seasons, and he hasn't missed a game. Drew Brees and Tom Brady, they haven't sat out any games because of injury since 2009. Obviously, Tom Brady missed the entire 2008 season with a knee injury he suffered in the opener, but since then, he hasn't sat out because of health reasons. Drew Brees didn't play in the regular season finale in 2009 because it was a meaningless game. The Saints didn't need that game to win, and the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2009. The Green Bay Packers have been to the playoffs 4 straight years since 2009. During that time, Aaron Rodgers has missed 1 game because of an injury, and he also sat out 1 meaningless game. The Falcons have been to the playoffs every year since 2010, and Matt Ryan, their starting quarterback, has not missed a game during that time. The Cincinnati Bengals, they've been to the playoffs the last 2 seasons, and their quarterback, Andy Dalton, hasn't missed a game. Andrew Luck played in all 16 games in his rookie season, and his predecessor as the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, Peyton Manning, he played every game for the Broncos last year, and he didn't miss a game from 2002 to 2010. And the Colts went to the playoffs every one of those years, and they won the Super Bowl in 2006. So it's not unheard of at all for starting quarterbacks in the NFL to play full 16-game seasons. And as you can see from these examples, these teams that have these quarterbacks, these healthy quarterbacks, tend to make the playoffs every year. You know, we're always looking at, everyone talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers as a pillar franchise in the NFL, but when you get right down to it, they've missed the playoffs every 3rd year since 2001. They made the playoffs in 2001 and 2002, missed it in 2003. Then Ben Roethlisberger came along in 2004. They made the playoffs in 2004 and 2005, winning the Super Bowl in 2005. Then missed it in 2006. They made the playoffs in 2007, 2008, missed it in 2009. Then they went to the playoffs again in 2010 and 2011 and missed the playoffs in 2012. So, you know, if the Steelers are going to be a perennial playoff team, they're going to need Ben Roethlisberger to pretty much play every game, because he missed, a couple of games that he missed in 2009. It could have been the difference between the Steelers winning and losing, and could have gotten the Steelers to the playoffs in 2009. 2006, he had the unfortunate motorcycle accident, but he also suffered a concussion that year too, which could have affected his health. Now, a lot of this falls on the offensive line, and the Steelers have been trying to remake their offensive line. They've been using high draft picks on their offensive line, at least in the 2010, 2011, and 2012 drafts. They've used high draft picks on their offensive line. They have a new offensive line coach, Jack McNeil Jr. And in reading in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, he seems to favor smaller, more athletic offensive linemen. So hopefully that change in style can improve Ben Roethlisberger's protection, but it's not the beating Ben Roethlisberger has taken over the last few years. he was sacked 50 times one year, and he's sacked 40-something times pretty much every year. The beating that he's taken, it's not all the offensive line's fault. A lot of it is just his style of play. Just his ability to just run around in that pocket, avoid the pass rush, and keep plays going. That's going to extend plays, and it's going to expose him to pass rushers more. So it really is hard to say whether protecting Ben Roethlisberger depends on the offensive line or if it has to do with his style of play, because it's really unique. There really are no other quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger when it comes to that way of playing football. So we'll see. Hopefully this year we'll an improved, more athletic offensive line. Hopefully players like David DeCastro, he was injured in the preseason last year, but hopefully he played in 4 games last year, but hopefully he learned from that quarter season of experience and he will be able to improve this year. Marcus Gilbert it looks like he's going to be Ben Roethlisberger's blindside protector. He was the Steelers Rookie of the Year in 2011, so it looks like he'll be the left tackle. Marquise Pouncey is the center. He's made the Pro Bowl every year in his 3-year career, although he might be a little bit overrated, but he's still good enough to have made the Pro Bowl, and he seems to fit the athletic mold that the Steelers' new offensive line coach prefers. There was the unfortunate stabbing of Mike Adams, who looks to be the Steelers' right tackle this year. Supposedly, the Steelers are saying that he'll be ready to go in training camp. And the Steelers had their 3 best running games last year with Mike Adams at right tackle. They had 3 games in a row there with individuals who rushed for 100 yards or more. So hopefully, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how the new offensive line fares, and ultimately Ben Roethlisberger's health is the most important thing, and that leads me to my next thing. It was kind of interesting. I saw on CBSSports.com this morning, Pat Kerwin of CBSSports.com predicted the Steelers to make the AFC Championship game in 2013. He acknowledged in his article that these are very early predictions. A lot can change even in training camp, but he brought up a very interesting stat that Ben Roethlisberger is 54-14 in his career when he's sacked 2 times or less. And he says that Bill Cowher told him that Roethlisberger is going to be motivated by the number 61 ranking that he received in the NFL Network's ranking of the top 100 players in 2013. And Pat Kerwin also bases his prediction on rookie running back Le'Veon Bell having a strong rookie season. It looks like I would say that of the rookies that the Steelers drafted, the 2nd-round pick, Le'Veon Bell, the running back, I would say he figures to have the biggest impact. One interesting thing about Le'Veon Bell is he has a tendency sometimes to leap over defenders, which is obviously that's not something he'll do on every down, but that's something that could come in handy considering the new rule in the NFL that bans running backs from lowering their helmet outside of the tackle box. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. It's just a little aside about Le'Veon Bell. I'll definitely talk more about Le'Veon Bell in future episodes of Black and Gold Central Radio. And, of course, next week when we get into full swing on Black and Gold Central, we will have guests on the show. And we'll do more of a a full hour. This is, as I said at the outset, this is a little preview shows so you can get to know me. Now, the next topic that I thought was kind of interesting was an article I saw in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette yesterday about Plaxico Burress. And Plaxico Burress says that he can still dominate in the red zone. He can still be a red zone threat, and he thinks he can help the Steelers in 2013. Well, with Plaxico Burress's height, he definitely could be a factor in the red zone, being taller than a lot of the people that he covers. I'm just wondering, though, if Plaxico Burress is actually going to make this team. He's going to turn 36 years old in August. And it was certainly nice last year to have Plaxico Burress back, at the very least from a sentimental standpoint. But he only caught 3 passes. Perhaps with a full off season under his belt, a full training camp, OTAs, and perhaps Burress can be more of a factor next year, or this year coming up, I should say. But I'm wondering if he's really going to make the team. If you look at the Steelers' depth chart at wide receiver, Antonio Brown, with Mike Wallace gone to the Miami Dolphins as a free agent, Antonio Brown is probably going to be the Steelers' number 1 receiver, and Emmanuel Sanders is probably going to be their number 2 receiver. It's hard to say which one of them right now will catch the most passes. Let's not forget Emmanuel Sanders is in a contract year, so he could be motivated to have a very productive year for the Steelers with those visions of dollar signs dancing around in his head. So you have Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders as presumably the top 2 wide receivers on the Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart. Then there's Marcus Wheaton, their 3rd-round draft pick. If a 3rd-round draft pick does not make the 53-man roster, in my opinion, I think that something's wrong with the progress of that 3rd-round pick. Marcus Wheaton, from what I've read, seems to be a more polished, not quite as fast as Mike Wallace, but a little more polished. He can run more of a variety of routes. And he seems to have the toughness of a running back. The new Todd Haley, the Steelers offensive coordinator, said that Marcus Wheaton does have some characteristics of a running back. So Marcus Wheaton's going to get on this team. He'll probably be the number 3 receiver. And then there's Jericho Conchery. He turns 31 this month. He really has been underutilized in his 2 years with the Steelers. With Mike Wallace and Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders in front of him, he's caught 33 passes in his 2 years with the Steelers. He might not be, I'm not sure he's going to get very many more balls thrown his way if Marcus Wheaton steps in front of him on the depth chart. But, I think last year, if you watch the Steelers last year, they seemed to design a lot of plays for Conchery in the red zone too. And if Heath Miller, who had knee surgery in December last year, if he's not ready to go on opening day this year, then Conchery could be more of a factor early in the season. And he's 5 years younger than Plaxico Burress. If Plaxico Burress is going to, number 5 receivers usually pretty much have to play special teams to make it on the roster. And Burress is 36. He's not going to do that. So if he makes this team, he's not going to make it as any more than a number 4 receiver. There's an undrafted rookie named J.D. Woods from West Virginia who caught 61 passes on the same team that had Tavon Austin and Stedman Bailey. Both of those receivers caught 114 passes, but J.D. Wood still found a way to catch 61 passes. So he could be a surprise guy to make the 53-man roster. And then there's Reggie Dunn, who returned 4 kickoffs, 100 yards for touchdowns last year at Utah. He could make the roster, but if he makes it, it'll probably be as a return specialist, and it would be as a number 6 receiver. So, it certainly would be nice to see Plaxico Burress, score a few touchdowns in the red zone for the Steelers in 2013, but I think he's going to have a hard time making the team. Now, as far as what's going on right now, this minute with the Steelers, their mandatory minicamp begins tomorrow. They're going to be practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They've had organized team activities, or OTAs. They've already had those. So mandatory minicamp is this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then after that, they're off until training camp. And training camp is when the pads go on. Because right now, any off-season practices, it's football and shorts, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. So you can't really get a read on how good any of these players are until training camp starts in July. But this week we will have one last glimpse of how certain guys look, how the depth chart might play out. And then there's a few weeks off. The Steelers get their little summer vacation before the training starts for real. And then hopefully we will be monitoring the Steelers mini camp this week. We'll be looking for trends. We'll be looking for things happening that we can talk about on Black and Gold Central Radio next week. And next week will be, as I said, we'll hopefully have a guest on the show. So for now, we're going to be signing off, and I, hope you enjoyed this little preview, this little introduction, this little first glimpse of Black and Gold Central Radio. As I said, you can follow Black and Gold Central Radio on Twitter. That's Black and Gold Central. Black, the letter N, and gold. You can follow me, Mike Batista, on Steel Tweets. It's Steel_tweets. And I'm really looking forward to your feedback on Black and Gold Central on our Twitter account, because we want this show to evolve. We want to make this show better every week. We want it to get better every week. So for now, I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on Black and Gold Central Radio.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.